incantations. You ride the pitch and tone through nameless days. I could tell you the course of a river can't be changed, but you've seen his face in its quiet reflection, felt the pull of shifting streams. Some days you are the strength of those currents. Others, lost in their fickle eddy, knots in your hair, too long uncombed. It matters not if it's water or song, this swell of chance, unlikely visitations, only that it brooks your sorrow, those last days when even your love could not save him. You tell me you've been where the river once flowed, banks alive now with black-eyed Susans, how it's their spring, not yours, how their hollow eyes hold your gaze. Innocence long buried in unmarked graves, you ride the rapids of an uncertain future. As for love, there is less of it now, but more need. Even the poets have lost their way. I would rather write about peace. It's far too cold for wandering alone without a coat, just harsh enough to stay at the window looking out, hand pressed against the pane. The streets are full of strangers carrying burdens no one can guess. There are no replacement parts. I see it in their faces. Some days I don't fret so much about nuts and bolts, planned obsolescence. Other days, this machine of flesh won't let me forget. Once you've left the house, there's no turning back. It doesn't matter that you have a spare key. That's not what will save you. Curl up like a beggar sheltered in the church vestibule, but leave your faith behind. You'll find time enough come morning to believe. Those bruises, they're not from sleeping on concrete or fists against skin. You got them from the soft places where you thought you were safe. It's okay to make plans if they ease you. Just know, traffic alerts mean nothing. Love is homeopathic, and fear is musky like pheromones. As long as the bombs land somewhere else, we're free. I think I will take a chair.
Will this chair do?
Yeah. Okay.
Let me adjust the mic for you.
Okay.
It's a little too close. All right. Just move this a little closer so you can see it. I think that'll probably.
Okay. You guys can hear me okay? Okay. Thanks for your patience. Longing for Giverny. Even now the peonies, musk of whispered promises, overspent blooms in rooms empty too long. Their withered petals hold memories like dust motes. Irony of spring full of rain and summer sun. the promise, the abandoned coda. Try as you might, you can't push aside harsh truth. Reclaim those youthful afternoons, the spill of my hair on your skin. Our season has passed. Try as I might, I can't break the spell of Giverny, shimmering lily pond, the purple iris, white lilies, song of cascading water. All of it washed away. In a room far from here, you sit, brush in hand, stroke impressions on canvas, a lover's honeyed strands caressing their skin, her hard nipples, her soft breasts. You rest within this, the blues, winter ice, safely hidden like your heart. Night vision. Engraved invitations continue to arrive from the past. I read them, yet never RSVP. It's rude of me, I know, though between the lines, I find irony in formica, linen, and good china. Women who wear heels to garden parties, heels that sink in soft summer grass. I was a child of university. Grammar in my cereal bowl, syntax on the barbecue, published or perished professors smoking pot in the back room while we splashed in the pool. Behind the smiles and cigarettes, tomes of transgression tucked away like drafts of unfinished novels they thought I'd never see. There was a cottage on the beach where arguments could be drowned in the sound of swells pounding the shore. Bounding the shore, night's high tide would sweep under the deck as if to return treasures taken or wash away those charming 50s facades. Now there's just sand and shore, sandpipers, the lagoon with its darting insects hovering, and memories in every tide pool. Brine is a fine preservative. Thank you all so much. I'm going to read this last piece. I don't usually write long poems, but this is one of the few long ones that I've written. It's entitled Absence Minded. As dawn seeps in to rouse me from my dreams, plaintive coos of mourning doves voice the echo in my heart. Voice the ache in my heart. I throw back the covers, abandon the bed, make my way to the espresso machine, jumpstart my day remembering you always preferred tea. I sit at the window, lost in your absence, watch the world around me move toward its workaday groove until soft sun turns to glare, mocks my solitude, challenges my fortitude. It's mornings I miss you most. My days are spent sculpting sentences, working words, finding clever new ways to turn a phrase, encourage commerce, please my clients, pay my bills. I do this in fits and starts, for part of me remains held by you, spellbound, wound up in the mystery that you could be but memory. Come days dimming, the sky displays a rosy glow, and in spite of commuter traffic, clickety-clack, the neighborhood coming back, peace descends. As night jasmine perfumes the air, I describe that last diatribe to a sister friend, how I watched you make your way down the stairs in silence, your silence wide as late summer sky. She sighs as a breeze sets a balcony chime singing. Chill seeps into my flesh. It's evenings I miss you most. Night stretches before me. I write, pace, see the reflection of your face in my window, an apparition of the heart. Sleep calls, I resist, loath to surrender to a double bed made single. I can't find a single reason we didn't work, a single reason to be single, to be without you. There's circumstance, other romances, that maddening dance men and women do. But we loved each other, you and I. We knew each other across time and didn't know each other at all. I want to shout this to the moon hanging low in the sky, so low she's apt to fall into my window, and I fall into bed exhausted. It's nights I miss you most. Sleep betrays me middle of the night. I wake with a start, the pace of my heart quickened from dreams I can't remember. They're there, but not. Like moving through gossamer, ship sounds and fog, you. It's midnight, I miss you most. A new day, hummingbirds dart and play at the window, their small, fragile bodies, pure energy. I can almost hear the roar of their delicate, iridescent wings, yet their motion appears so effortless. Mesmerized by the magic of their movement, I momentarily forget. It's mornings I miss you most.
In 2008, I was nominated by this arts organization called the It's About Time Reading Series with Esther Helfgott, who's very much active still. And so there were 13 nominees, and they put all of our poems, each person had a poem online, and you were supposed to read all 13 and then vote for, which you thought was the best, right? And so I pointed this out to my English 151 Introduction to Poetry Writing class, and I said for an assignment, what I would like you to do is I would like you to read all 13 poems, including mine, by all 13 poets, and then before you vote, ask yourself, which one of these people has a direct effect on my grade in English 151? Does anybody remember the Washington State Poet Association? Or the what? I don't know. I used to go to these conferences once a year, and they were so cool. And so this one was in Ellensburg, and I got there really early, so I went into this bar, and I'm having lunch. This is years and years ago. And this guy told me this story, and he swears it's true, that in Kansas, it was a tornado that picked up his house, put it 100 feet away on a barn, and him and his grandmother never woke up. He swore to me that was true. I don't believe him to this day. So this was my poem for the Poet Populist competition. It's called Don't Read This Poem. Don't read this poem unless your glass is half full. Unless you're willing to believe that for every pissed off tornado like the one in The Wizard of Oz, there is a sweet sister twister like the whirlwind in St. Mary's, Kansas, circa 1993. Ma asleep for hours. I hit the rack around midnight. Pa stumbles home drunk as usual, fumbles to find his key, but there is no keyhole because there is no house. The old white A-frame is now perched 100 feet away with uncanny symmetry on top of the barn as Ma and I snooze dreamily inside. Heirloom china neither chipped nor cracked, antique crystal in mint condition, no farm girls struck on the head, no animals killed or unaccounted for, just a friendly pick-me-up from a lonely cyclone roaming through Tornado Alley on a Saturday night with God's fingerprint swirls all over it. 4 miles down the road, the torrent spins a glorious pit stop through O'Malley's greenhouse, plucks a sizable garden of pink gardenias, and twists its way through the rest of the state of Kansas, a resplendent vacuum of positive energy, a tap-dancing pink tornado of love. Okay.
I'll vote for that.
This poem is new, as might be suggested by its title. I didn't want to read this, but I have to read this. It's called January 2nd. Okay. 9:35 a.m. Hi, she says. Is it okay if I come over to discuss something? Sure, I say. Discuss what? We'll talk about it when I get there. Can I at least have a hint? We'll talk about it when I get there. In the course of human events, this can only mean one of two things. Number one, my girlfriend is about to propose marriage, or number two, my girlfriend is about to dump me. I think I know which one it is. I guess she finally did the math. I'm 68, she's 42, her kid is 7. I just wish she'd have done this calculus 8 months ago, because we had a closeness that I had never experienced in 2 marriages, several serious relationships. At least I thought we did. Next July, I was supposed to pack up and move in with her and her 7-year-old daughter. I was going to take money out of my savings and put a down payment on a house. The truth is, though, I really didn't want to move from my little 2-bedroom apartment with a view of Mount Rainier on the rare occasion she's willing to come out, where I have been for more years than I can even count. In my current domain, 30 miles from their place, I have a paint room with plastic all over the walls and floor. On occasions, Mom and daughter both visit. The girl and I put on our matching white overalls and start throwing paint around Jackson Pollock style, all over the canvases laid out on the floor. The girl loves this paint fest free-for-all almost as much as I love watching her paint and laugh simultaneously. She calls me Mikey. The day after Christmas, I took her and her mom, plus my teenage sons, to the Broadway production of Mary Poppins. When the house lights finally went down and the curtain started to rise, the little girl whispered, "Mikey, I'm scared, but in a good way." Poets are drawn to melodrama. It's kind of our job. Someday the sadness will wane, I'm sure, and perhaps be replaced by relief. I don't know. But I do know this, I'm not my age. After 30 years as a college professor, I have been fortunate to have over 10,000 students in 600 classes who made me feel a little younger each day instead of a little older. A few years ago, I retired, but this senior citizen is still a high-octane, glass-half-full, type A personality, even if happy hour has been replaced by the early bird special. I had never intended to be someone's New Year's resolution: join the gym, read War and Peace, lose weight, dump the nutty professor. Now it's time for me to take the sagacious advice I've been doling out to students ad infinitum. Ask for help. Seeking assistance is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows you haven't given up yet. It shows you're keeping your left up, still looking for those uppercuts and right hooks that life will surely throw your way. Shockingly, I'm even taking my own advice. And surprisingly, I've noticed that as I reach out, not for sympathy or pity, but to share my trials and tribulations with trusted family and friends, it feels like in some small way, I might be helping them too. This poem, it's from my mother, it's called Premeditation. Starts with an epigram by a song I like a lot. But in the gray of the morning, my mind becomes confused between the dead and the sleeping and the road that I must choose. That's the song Question by Justin Hayward, the Moody Blues. Premeditation. I'm the first to admit I don't know the difference between deep sleep and flatlining, diamonds and cubic zirconium, the Grand Canyon and a grand piano. But ever so slowly, I'm beginning to develop the ability to distinguish the subtleties between sorrow and the acceptance of sorrow. Which is this: the more profound the grief, the more profound the acceptance has to be. Expectations are typically premeditated resentments waiting in a dark alley behind a dumpster to jump your ass and kill you from the inside out, a little at a time, sociopath, psychopath, posing as your newest best friend. And every day, I'm trying to remember that as I try not to miss you so much every day, every single day. I wouldn't let my students write rhyming poetry because it was so bad. But a couple of them were good. But anyway, so now I've taken up poetry writing. So if any of my students are out there, I'm sorry about this. This is called My Infatuation Situation. She's exotic, she's erotic, she's a double gin and tonic. Her Rolex is atomic, the cost was astronomical. Not quixotic or laconic, she is decidedly hypnotic. Her eyes are electronic, her heart Napoleonic. She owns a dog named Dog and a cat named Catatonic. While others drift above the trees, her jet is supersonic. And when it comes to the narcotic, she likes to puff the chronic, although bold, truth be told, she's really hooked on phonics. As for Shakespeare's tragedies, she finds them rather comic. If she decides to be a plague, she'll likely be bubonic, though she might prefer an earthquake as her plates are quite tectonic. She's harmonic, she's symphonic, she's a full-on philharmonic. She exorcises demons from the hopelessly demonic. Every single moment, she's the opposite of robotic. And although my love for her is merely embryonic, already my greatest fear is that dirty word, platonic. Her theatrics and histrionics are making me neurotic. I'd have to say an inch away from clinically psychotic. And though I know it all comes so hopelessly ironic, there's nothing left now to do but write another sonnet. This one won in Spectrum magazine in LA. This guy named Don Campbell selected this as the winner in the rhyming category. So I feel like I really owe my students. This one student, she wrote this beautiful rhyming poem, and she said it just wrote herself. And I said if it was smart enough to write itself, it should have been smart enough to know that the teacher wasn't taking end rhyme. And she started crying. That was 18 years ago. I still feel bad about that. Anyway, I wrecked her. Anyway, this is for her. It's called The Imposter's Sonata to the Sea. I have no idea what you do in the swirling seas so deep and blue. You claim to be so many things, and some of them have quite a ring. A porpoise with a purpose, a gay stingray, a badass eel barracuda on a motor scooter. but you're really a sucker fish riding the snark of an unknowing hammerhead or mako shark. You're a death wish to all the angelfish, a pain in the ass to every sea bass, no help to the kelp, a lobster mobster, a bad crawdad, enemy to the sea anemone, flim flam to every razor, clam, a scar on the caviar, and you did quite a number on that sea cucumber. Obviously, it's ludicrous to arm wrestle an octopus. Plus, you sleep in a bed of immoral coral. I should have guessed all this, of course, when you tried to saddle my damn seahorse. But now I can see, as you swim in slow motion, you truly believe you're every fish in the ocean. With a spot on your tail fin that looks like an eye to throw off the big fish who want you to fry. I'm sure it creates considerable distress and no doubt ruins their GPS. But sir, stay away from my rod and reel, because I'll never forget the lies you conceal. And I recall the time you said quite unabashedly, "Hey honey, come over here and hold my anchovies." That's it, I'm done. I caused enough problems for one night. Thank you for doing that.
The first one's called Haunting. Before I was captivated by poets' voices, I heard my father's thunder. Frightening, full of shoulds and don'ts. Could he have been the same one who read to me from a large volume of best-loved poems? Wordsworth's daffodils graced the room, as did Longfellow's wreck of the Hesperus. And just for fun, he sprinkled in Elephone, who tried to use the telephone. My father's taste ranged widely as he drafted ditties in the kitchen. For colleagues' birthdays or retirements, rhyming dictionary by his side. Today, the sea is the color of celadon, while snowflakes sting my face. Along the shore, I disturb two crows pecking at a discarded bag, tossed casually in the middle of the road. Someone's breakfast or dinner, smelly with ketchup. And there was my father again, the litter policeman wagging his finger. This next one is called Anagram Dance. I read a prompt about writing a poem that was an anagram, and I needed to look up anagram. The dictionary definition of an anagram is a word formed by rearranging the letters of another, like cinema formed from Iceman. Anagram, too many flies in the soup of my life, finding my way through first outrage and age tour of how little bandwidth I currently have. It doesn't take much to amp up my anxiety into a flurry of a yetniks. That's when my crashing rage recharges and a grace garnish leans over a threshold to whisper, shh, shh.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to find an audience before writing this last month, so you're all here for the world premiere of my new holiday poem. Is it bad form to skip the content warning before a cry for help? If you find yourself worth more dead than alive, go shopping. Draw down. Play Santa Claus like your life hangs in the balance. Grab a rag and polish the doubt out of your sterling credit score. That's my argument for reinstating Jubilee. I also write haiku, and if you think you know what that sounds like, I understand, but hear me out. In addition to writing these haiku, I burn some of them by hand into bespoke pieces of wood photograph them, and assemble 12 each year for an annual wall calendar. The last of which I'm trying to sell before 2025 is too deep. So in that spirit, I'm going to read these 12 haiku. January. Massively restive, sad, stressed, and adamantly passive-aggressive. Melodious blues produces odious loops of Mobius noose. Avian farce, 6 cardinals fits, partial starts, and mixed martial arts. Predominantly synonymous, ominous hippopotamus. Rotation in protoplanetary disk can miscarry this. Again, a full breath of the pause, leading cause of preventable death. Cultural gulf wide, awash in patriotic hydrogen sulfide. I forgot the months. August. With what beautiful angles and lines, blue angels spew fuel through the skies. September. Autumn days upset reflection with frothy waves of sunset spectra. October. How to make demons. Start with innocent hearts, teach hate, then leave them. Wait. November. Eyes crossed, I'm sauced. Dreams clotted, wine tossed, besotted, mind lost, T's dotted. December. Smiting writing spills, skilled spite defeats haters, still might delete later.
Welcome, world. I didn't realize we were broadcasting to the entire planet. It's fantastic. I had a dear sister, 10 years older than me, and she passed away this October. I adored her. She adored me. She was beautiful and fun. She did get dementia, but before she had dementia, we had a brother who passed away in 2015, and some of you know I play the harmonica, so I actually, and we're Scots, so I piped him out. I did a little harmonica piping out of the church, and she and I walked out of this church together, and she looks at me and she goes, "Well, I guess we're next." That was kind of the humor she had. It was really, she was a crack up. And she called me, this is just one piece, and it's called Figs. It's because that's what she called me. Figs was the nickname she had for me, a word anyone might overhear and yet have no clue what or why. Even after learning that name was born in a malaprop that I had blurted out when, at her behest, I labored to pronounce my own full name while sitting cross-legged on her bed, facing each other when I was 3 and she a newly minted teen. Figs. She always called me that. Up until the end, it was our code. Like one of those public-private encryption keys, you might hear the public-facing key and even the explanation, but only she and I held the private key. To that moment of delicious torment by a teenage girl of her younger brother made him squirm and pound his fists in delighted fury as she welcomed him out of babyhood. So I would try and fail again, and she would howl with laughter. I wandered further and further from my given name until Figs popped out and stuck. She always called me that and never let it die, as if my public name was not the true one. That moment was the crucible of our indelible code, which bonded us forever. And near the end, it would be sharp enough to cut through her mounting dementia, like a warm knife through congealing butter, make her seem almost fully there. At times, I sense her by the doorway, see her tilt her head, and with her sly smirk, toss out, "See ya, Figs, see ya."
I'm going to read sort of an abbreviated version of a blog post I just put up a couple days ago. Coincidence or cautionary tale? Shortly before the recent publication of my latest memoir, I received an interesting email, a series of questions, really, from a friend. These questions prompted me to dig deep, to find some answers. First, I write to understand, clarify, remember, create. I write because it calms my soul, allows my brain to stop and sleep. I am not a writer who writes to convince anyone of anything or even to entertain. I do not think of an audience when I write, and I certainly don't think I'll ever clear a cent of profit from my writing. So why publish at all? I've been journaling off and on for over 50 years. In 2002, I began writing what became my first book. Why did I seek that first publication? Because the 39th victim gave voice to a silenced past. Without publication, without voice, I believed, and I still believe, that I would have remained an incomplete woman. 3 memoirs and 3 novels later, I've written, published Pandemic Baby, Letters to My Grandson Before He Could Read. What began as a coping tool of journals and letters during a dreadful pandemic gave voice to my political and social beliefs in a more direct manner than anything I had ever written before. A clarifying of my beliefs. To publish was to give voice to those beliefs. And though I am no one famous or important, my beliefs matter, and so do yours. So I published. I published on Amazon. I'd prefer my books to be in every independent bookstore and library across the country. But I'm an elderly white woman of average talent, with a limited writers' network and minimal means. I have published with 3 small presses that all went out of business. No major agent or publisher has expressed interest in my work. Publishing on Amazon allows me to hold that work in book format and share my voice with a small audience of devoted readers. For this, I am grateful. Why now? Why publish a story about the tragedies of Trump's first term just after he's been reelected to a second? Pandemic Baby was never intended as a cautionary tale. I wasn't trying to convince anyone how to vote in the 2024 election. It is, however, an accurate description of the period from early 2020, when COVID hit the Seattle area, to summer 2022, when my grandson could finally be vaccinated. The book opens with an overview of the Trump years prior to my grandson's birth in June 2020. It was a time unlike any other in the history of our democracy. I wanted to document the world as I saw it, the world into which he was born. But Jack was only one of 3 million babies born in the United States during the first year of the pandemic. The story I wrote goes beyond him and me. It's a story of all the pandemic babies, their parents and grandparents. It's a book I published to give voice to a unique yet universal story. The publication just after the Trump re-election was a coincidence. And yet, if it serves as a reminder of what we have been through and what we will need to prepare ourselves to endure once again, the timing may indeed be perfect. Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. It was 12 years ago next week when we lost a great American poet who, for the last years of his life, lived in Seattle. Some of you may have known him. And for those who did not, I encourage you to introduce yourself through his many volumes of poetry. Get to know this amazing man. His name, Jack McCarthy. When I first met Jack, it was like finding a long-lost friend, like finding a diamond in the sand. Some might say it was a coincidence. I believe it was a God incidence. Jack was a guest on my national radio show, Recovery Coast to Coast, where he spoke eloquently about what it was like for him during his drinking days, what happened to propel him into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and what it was like after 40 years of continuous sobriety. His joy, his grace, his gratitude flowed like a gentle river in the quiet of summer. That first meeting was set up by my dear friend, Mike Hickey, who you heard tonight. Mike was a co-host on the radio show. Jack's wife, Cheryl, told me that Jack was going into hospice and that his cancer had spread. Following his transition to wherever it is we all eventually go, I produced a video tribute, which is available on YouTube, combining Jack's own poetic musings about life and death, plus photos from Jack's collection, and musical backdrop with a warm and tender song by Carla Bonoff called Goodbye, My Friend. I have 2 poems of tribute to share tonight. One I wrote a few weeks before he passed, and a poem I wrote 7 years ago on the 5th anniversary of his passing. It was featured in a book called Allow the Light, The Lost Poems of Jack McCarthy, published by Right Bloody Books. This is called On the Doorstep of Death. Jack continues to write and fight as the days dwindle down to a precious few, and the writing on his wall is poetry and prose. He writes in the shadow of time, embraced by authenticity, tethered to today, as words explode onto the page like fireworks on the 4th of July. In his younger days, Jack was a runner. Now he's running again, running the final mile with the finish line in sight, and thousands cheering him on in his magnificent marathon with a wonderful victory lap over the hills of regret, through the roads of love, across the trails of time, running, waiting, wanting, hoping, as he begins to run out of breath. Now he sits tethered to tubing and time, breathing in oxygen, breathing out love, bathed in the beauty of Jack and Carol, Carol and Jack, joined together at the heart, and his unlimited love for his daughters and a multitude of his friends. I visit on Mondays and record the words that will remain a living legacy of a life well lived, a man well loved, who will be remembered forever. His love will splash on the shores of time. Yes, Jack is dying, yet so are we. Jack is just further up the list, a little closer to the door, preparing to go gently from here to there into whatever awaits Today, there are angels outside of Victoria Park, room 709, one on each side, patiently waiting, quietly and gently, for the circle to close. I've seen the angels on my weekly visits. I heard them softly singing, and I believe Jack did as well. Death is imminent, yet death will have no hold on Jack, on his words, his memory, what he's left behind, and most certainly will be carried forward as he prepares to be released to stroll along the labyrinth of eternity with grace and dignity now and at the hour of his death. Amen. And this was written 7 years ago, called Victoria Park, which was the place where he lived. 5 years ago today, just before sunrise, the angels of mercy touched his tired body and took his treasured soul to another place, somewhere south of time. At the intersection of life and death, of hope and longing, of what is and what was meant to be, with only words and memories remaining. His death was designed by the universe. After dancing his way on borrowed time, playing for years with house money, riding the rails and railing about life, his fear of death replaced by dignity and an overpowering of grace as the winds of winter carried him away. The road from Victoria Park to the Blue Hills of New England was lined with precious memories as the shoebox traveled at the speed of love, finding its way to Hawk Hill and a scattering of life, a scattering of ashes, a scattering of words, as teardrops moistened the earth, his physical body unceremoniously reduced to a simple shoebox full of ashes and dust. He left behind tender memories made of silver and gold, his body of work unharmed by time, untouched by death, overflowing with spiritual riches well beyond measure, to be softly absorbed by those who still search and discover as his words scream and shout, as his words gently whisper, undiminished by the inconvenience of death, an unblemished beacon casting light against the shadows through the forests of each new season. 5 years later, dust and ashes, ashes and dust, long since scattered, leaving a trail through time. Only the words on the pages remain, moving silently, reflectively, traveling at the speed of understanding. The memories and celebrations continue in a world without end. From a life well lived, of a man well loved, for death only comes to those who are forgotten. Jack McCarthy will most certainly live forever. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So I'm just reading one poem tonight. I'm taking a course called Writing Dangerously. So this one's got a little sizzle, but I hope you enjoy. It's called Just Because You Can. My stepdad says, just because you can doesn't mean you should, and my therapist says to look out for shoulds. So should I really be messing with anything resembling my wants, my needs? I mean, I can do a lot, or so I've been told, but not a lot of what I can makes money, so I should choose wisely, because how can I have without money a career, a family, food, healthcare, a house, flowers in my yard, the benefit of the doubt, someone holding the door for me? When I went to summer camp, they didn't ask me what I wanted to be. They said, listen to the trees. But what do trees know about money? Except everything, except how they sacrifice themselves without being asked for dollar bills so I can go on living. Today and most Mondays, I go to the land because I can help a group of people take care of an area of land they listen to. I'm never asked what I do. I am welcomed. If I can and should, why shouldn't I? I'd like to think this all means something, that if I can think long enough, try hard enough, I should make a difference. It should be worth it. I might be worth it. But really what I can choose is who to listen to. I'm done with the shoulding, imposing, posturing. I listen to the whispered, muted, soft, I bury myself in the trees. I can hear my own faint heartbeat among them. And what will I do with that breath? Thanks.
Love alone. Love alone has birthed us. Love has blessed us, swept us, kept us. Love alone will take us home, where love alone can save us. Ocean. On a long, arid stretch of road between Eureka, California and Salt Lake City, I pulled off onto gravel, got out and waited for a tractor trailer to pass and disappear, its sound trailing away over a rise. I looked out on a long land of wide sky and an ocean of silence. There were no bird or insect sounds, no wind, only a silent ocean, raining, playing, holding, staying. I pocketed that silence as a memory where I can take it out to here today. Homonym. In the land of esoteric baloney, everything said sounds good. Dining there, however, is like noshing on softened store-bought bread when one could have partaken of stone-ground kernels, harvest of wheat and rye allowed to grow tall. There's no route out of the land of esoteria, as all roads appear good, with no distinguishing good from bad, in a land without sleet or slanting, glancing, cleansing rain, or pelting hail, flurries of snow or whitened bones of animals bleached by a notched-up sun. A land where bland is bland and same is same, where only balmy breezes blow above thick-thatched mush-brown ground and the evening approach of low, sulphurous clouds. Other than these, no indication. Distant land. In a wooded parking lot I stood, reading block letters on a car's license plate holder. Czechoslovakia. This was no vanity plate, but a mass-produced holder. So what could it mean? My mind ran its Rolodex of Eastern European nations, returning from the journey void. Yet the thought came, what would the place be like? I imagined Czechoslovakians strolling in their sunny town square of cobblestones with a fountain, men in dark green lederhosen, white-bloused women in billowing gay dresses. Staring harder at the word, I managed to break it into three. Chuck Olson Kia. The name of a local car dealership. Yes. Years later, the dealer's license plate holder spaced the word apart, but for me, the damage was done. Visions of happy Czechoslovakians remain, wending to market Saturdays, as alpenhorns bleat, a tuba bays, and to the skies their voices raise, an anthem dear of heartfelt praise. O Czechoslovakia, in you we thrive, for you we strive. Far more, fair homeland, for you we drive.
Well, I'm an oxygen waster and a boneyard taster. And on top of that, under my hat, I'm high as a peak on the moon. Maybe today, maybe next week. I shall surely be dead quite soon. But for tonight, half moon in Cancer, I'm out with Mr. Raccoon looking for the answer. Dig my grave, clown. Dig it well, dig it good. Dig it like a devil down in hell should. Call me the knave of spades, Uncle Blackjack, nephew to the universe, cousin to birth's curse and to death's boon. Daniel in the wilderness never lost. Though once for 5 days a mite bewildered, way out in the boonies, lost finds a way to find a way out. Space weaves time's web, few and far between any who off the spin wean. I am not one of those either, though once a minute for 5 days lost in ether. Call me a joker, call me a card. Grunt, I lard the world big with ambiguity. Here but the top, never peek underneath till you find yourself with the slops out on the heath. Chuck that earth while you chuckle at my rave at the knave of spades. Dig my grave, clown. Dig it well, dig it good. Dig it like a devil down in hell should. I am not one of those either, though once a day for 5 minutes lost in ether. Deal me off the bottom, cheat me at solitaire, whip my butt in the woodshed, but never for me shed a single tear. Dig my grave, clown, do me the boon, knave of spades, to dig. And I'll finish the evening, I guess. I go where the wind sucks. I go where the wind blows. I go where the wind whistles ill. I long to run through the wind's throat. Oh, how I love my tongue, this lean, anguish long wedge. When young and not getting my mouth washed out with soap or being badgered to bite my tongue, I love to run into the wind's teeth. Thank you.
I have a dear friend, 2 friends. They're married. We've known them for a long time. And she was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And it's progressing, although I think it's the disease is progressing. She's digressing, you know. I've never liked this, the disease is progressing kind of thing. Anyway, they live far away now, so they live in far away. And her daughter, who lives near her, contacted a number of us. She wanted to create an altar that with familiar things on it that we would donate, and then so that she could have her own room there and some space and so forth. And so we all participated in that. And my wife wanted to send a small carved kayak she'd gotten in Alaska. And I asked her why, and she said, well, I've always wanted to go kayaking with her. I mean, they never did. They never even talked about it. But it was something she had wanted to do. And so it's this hand-carved thing. But it used to have a little paddle in the in the kayak. And the paddle got lost. So we couldn't find it. We don't know where it is. So we sent that, and I decided I was inspired to write a poem, which I sent along, and apparently there was a big ceremony, and this altar was created, and it was very much appreciated by her. She's still alive, although she has chosen to die with dignity, and so there's a process by which she's going through. And This is difficult for everybody, I'm sure, but this Sunday we're going to be on a Zoom call ostensibly to say goodbye, which I don't think I've ever done in my life, so I have no idea what you do on calls like that, but we'll find out. Anyway, this is the poem that I wrote. It's it's not a great poem, but it's heartfelt. We move silently, side by side, without paddles, far beyond the horizon, where kayaks glide by hidden hands to other shores. Their friends greet us, waving and smiling, with flowers in their hair. As evening comes, we all rest by fireside glow, remembering everything and everyone.